Today, Jay, we're covering the Odyssey. This was a poem story that one person would shout it to the town on Friday nights, and that's the that's the banger, right?
Hit us with the Cyclops again, you know. All right, we're doing the Cyclops story again.
The influence stems from the cultural programming that this story, the Odyssey, did to ancient man and all the societies of ancient man. I mean, the town gets together and they hear a story once a week and they discuss the morals and they learn their lessons. And this is the story that fathers tell their children and elders tell the town, right? Like this is like what we would say would be like the, I don't want to call it the Bible, but it's the Bible pre-Bible.
Fables, right? And stuff.
Set the stage. So in the story, the Odyssey, we are 10 years post-Trojan War.
Yeah. Which took 10 years, apparently. It was 10 years of raiding and sacking cities and killing people.
Which is 20 years after Mr. Odysseus, our star, left his little island of Ithaca in an island near Greece. And he left his son, Telemachus, and his wife, Penelope, on that island because he had to go to war. 10 years war, 10 years trying to get back home.
And then the story opens.
Without further ado, we're going to go chapter by chapter. If you're new to Books Brothers, we break everything down chapter by chapter. Make sure you know what is in the book. Right, Jay? So we're going to get book 1, chapter 1, Athena inspires Telemachus, which we call this ourselves. This is like the Council of Elrond of this story.
For the Greek gods.
For the Greek gods, right? So, Jay, the story opens on a god meeting. We have Zeus, Athena, all the rest of the gods. Athena's like, hey, Zeus, my guy, this Odysseus has been just banging Calypso on this island.
Yeah, she's like, my guy is Odysseus. I like Odysseus. He's the smart guy. He's been trying to get home for 10 years. Zeus, let's do something about it. Poseidon's being an asshole. Tell your brother to calm down.
Calypso won't let him leave.
I know. And so they're like, okay, they send Hermes of the winged shoes. He's like the messenger god. Go down. Zeus tells him, go down to Calypso. Tell him to let him go, and then let him get back to his island. My daughter wants him to for some reason. I don't care. Zeus is pretty hands off in the whole thing. Whatever.
Love that. Yeah. So finally, camera shifts, and now we're over at Telemachus, which is Odysseus' son on the island of Ithaca,
who's 20 years old,
who's now 20, right? And Athena is riling him up too. She's like, she shapeshifts into a character on the island known as Mentor, who's just like a guy in the town.
Who kind of helps him get off his ass and go be a man. Mentor tells him, which is where we get the word mentor, which is pretty cool.
Just a random dude in Ithaca.
Yeah.
Good job, dude. The situation that Telemachus finds himself in, and this is, Jay, we're talking about the cultural programming of ancient man. This is where it starts. Okay, Odysseus has been gone for 20 years. What's going to happen to Odysseus? Is rich. He's got a castle. He's got a wife. He's got pigs.
Household.
He's got wine.
It's all about the household and how should the household run itself? What's the program? How does it function? What you're supposed to host guests. That's like the big theme of the Odyssey is to be a good host. And the whole plot, the whole foil of the plot is that there's all these suitors at the household who are mooching off of Odysseus' house, and they're staying forever. They're eating up all his food, and they're just waiting to marry Penelope because they're like, Odysseus is dead. Someone's gonna marry her, And so that's the whole conflict in the plot is that there's 100 semi-nobles who are just eating up his house, being very rude and not living up to the guest friendship,
moral quality
moral code that they have.
Ancient Greek believed in. Dude, it's just so funny to think you leave your house and then all your friends come over and just drink all your wine, eat all your food, hit on your lady, that's just crazy. But that's what was happening in Ithaca. But that was Telemachus when he's a little boy and his dad's not there. He doesn't know. Well, it's 20 years. He's becoming a man right now.
Get your shit together,
Mentor
Telemachus.
comes in. He's like, bro, don't let this happen anymore.
Yeah.
Chapter 2, which, by the way, they're called Book 2, but we're going to, I might say
book.
chapter.
Go book.
Book 2, the debate in Ithaca. And by the way, the chapter starts every single time. This is the rap battle stuff we talked about. The poetry, I'm calling it rap battle, but the poem, the rhyme. Jay, you told me about this, but every single time they mention dawn. As soon as dawn appeared, fresh and rosy fingered.
Yeah, or mine is Dawn with her rose red fingers took her golden throne. I like that. And every single morning is Dawn with her rose red fingers took her golden throne, and then this. And that's how it's like the storytelling technology by which you could like be like, oh, okay, we're starting again. I have a line, it gets you rolling, and then you can keep going. You need these like hooks to place these ideas, to place these scenes on, So the Wine Dark Sea is the other famous one, Gray-Eyed Athena or Bright-Eyed Athena, just like it gives you a few extra words to like get a little momentum. You get, everyone can like, we're back onto this.
Tagline. It's kind of like you see Darth Vader and they play the Darth Vader theme again. Yeah. It's like, okay, we know, like, it's amazing these storytelling devices that ancient man was going with, man. They knew how to get people. Yeah, people are in the town, but they're listening. They're talking to their friends. They're not really paying attention. All right, everyone, Dawn, fresh and rosy fingered, golden throne. Like, bang, we're back, right? Yeah. The next day, chapter 2, Telemachus, he calls the first assembly of Ithaca. His own, I guess this is the first assembly, his assembly that he calls of Ithaca.
Yeah.
And he says, you asshole suitors, you jerk suitors, I'm done with you, And this is a quote from the book. Sons of your leaders here, too cowardly to present themselves at my mother's father's house to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, And by the way, he's 20 years old. All these guys are older than him. It's 20 on 1. He can't win, but he's like, this is his boy to man. This is his boy to man inflection point.
I think he cries too. I think they make him. Yeah, Homer makes him like a little bit of a baby or whatever. They make fun of him. He cries. He goes away. And Mentor's like, hey, why don't you go visit your dad's friends, get some information on Odysseus, go to Nestor, go to Menelaus, talk to them, they'll kind of buck you up a little bit, show you how to be a real man, because you don't have the example of how to be a real man because your dad's gone and these suitors are assholes,
This is a little bit of like a Boy Meets World, kind of ancient Boy Meets World.
It is a little bit. And so that brings us to books 3 and 4 when Telemachus visits. I think these are pretty big characters in the Iliad. I shouldn't say I think. These are big characters in the Iliad, Nestor and Menelaus. And we're going to kind of skip some of this because it gets, they're having conversations. Telemachus is seeing, this is what a household looks like when the king's home, when everybody's in their place, when the household is running properly, the slaves are obeying the king, good morals here. I like that. So he's talking to Nestor, who's the king of Pylos.
Well, yeah, the thing I love, so he visits Nestor, which has a whole kingdom. You show up to the kingdom, they say, welcome, who are you? There's this whole, like, guest, host, like, rhythm and rhyme.
Code, and he calls it God-fearing. Like, when Odysseus is going to a place later in this story, he says, who am I going to find here? Are they God-fearing men? Are they going to give me a gift when I come? They're going to feed me, and then I'm going to tell them who I am. I'm going to tell them my story. It's this whole ritualized bit, and that makes sense for how to scale up the Greek world. This is all like this is the Greek Dark Ages here, and you can see the structure, the social structure that they have that allows them to scale up like little colonies that start, going into Turkey. They have colonies in the Black Sea eventually. The Greek mode kind of spreads, which is cool.
It reminds me a lot of a former Books Brothers book we did, Jay, Ancient City.
Yeah.
Where they talk about every city kind of created its own religion. It had its own moral code. And this was sort of the way that the different cities were able to connect to each. Hey, if you're just a guest here, you act like a guest. We'll treat you like a guest. We'll be nice. We don't have to kill everyone that comes across our path that we don't know.
Yeah.
That was kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
And in this book 3, by the way, we meet Menelaus's wife. She's pretty famous, dude.
Helen.
By the way, we all think of it Helen of Troy. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Dude, Helen was stolen by Troy.
Yeah.
Dude, and it was Menelaus' wife, and that's what the Trojan War was about, was getting Helen back from the Trojans.
Yeah. And here's another one, is Helen. Homer doesn't actually describe Helen as being super beautiful or anything. Homer doesn't describe any women almost at all, Like, Helen's just this girl. They say she's really smart. They say she's really interesting, and, you can assume that she's beautiful, but that becomes later that they make her like, this like the pure beauty or whatever. So Menelaus is chatting. Telemachus kind of like chats with Helen. Eventually, Helen gives everybody some drugs to make them sleepy and like chill.
Yeah,
hey, that was kind of. I don't know what that was about.
Vibe out a little bit, dude. Helen,
maybe she's passing some J's around.
Is Helen the original damsel in distress?
Maybe.
Everywhere they go, They see you. Oh, guest, welcome to our home. Here's our finest food. Here's our best alcohol. We're going to have some ladies rub you down with olive oil. They rub down olive oil every time.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm like, sounds pretty great. I mean, it's like, dude, but they always rub down in olive oil. I just want to say, like, I would like to try that. I don't know if we can get some extra virgin olive oil. I don't know.
So Menelaus has some information on Telemachus because he wrestled a Greek god and got this Greek nymph god or something to give him some information.
Menelaus is on Odyssey, on Odysseus. You said Telemachus, but yeah.
Oh yeah, he's got
Menelaus has info on Odysseus for Telemachus. That's great.
And he says, your father's alive. He's trapped by the Greek goddess Calypso on her island.
Whoa, big dude! How did Telemachus not already know this?
Yeah.
If this guy's the next town over,
I know, it is pretty wild. Good thing Mentor got him to get off his ass.
True.
So that's what's crazy. We haven't even met Odysseus yet. At all, we're book 5 is when you meet Odysseus, and this is still 20 years after he left for the Iliad, and then 10 years of the Odyssey. We don't know any of the stories that have happened. He presents them as flashback in book 9. So we have 4 more books of how Odysseus gets off Calypso's island and goes to somewhere else, and then he's going to give us a flashback. But what's he doing on Calypso's island?
So book 5, Hermes arrives. We mentioned this at the top because we had the Council of Elrond with the Greek gods. Well, now we're back to that storyline. Hermes arrives on Calypso's island. Hey, Calypso, stop banging Odysseus. Let him go.
As a sex slave.
Yeah, and then we got Calypso gives a full feminist rant right here.
Speech. You could also say speech.
Excuse me. Quote, you male gods can take mortal women whenever you want, but when a goddess takes a mortal man, suddenly it's a problem?
See, that's a really, what I liked about the Odyssey is it's the only book of Homer that actually has women speaking at all. Like, this is a quasi-feminist speech 3,000 years ago. It's pretty cool to you get more flavors from the society, from different perspectives, a lot more different perspectives in the Odyssey versus the Iliad.
I could see the, all the different people that are telling the story in front of the town.
Yeah.
They're like, 50% of the people here are women. We got to give them a little.
Can't you see the women looking at each other and laughing
those
way to go,
males.
Calypso. Zeus has sex slaves all over the place. Nobody bats an eye.
Yeah,
as soon as Calypso does it,
thanks, Calypso.
Yeah.
Speak up. So she's like, all right, Odysseus, you can go, but you got to build your own raft. I'm not going to magic you way home.
I think she magics him a raft.
No, I think he builds his own raft. He's he's got to build his own raft there, bud.
I think she magics him a raft.
I don't know.
Okay. Our editor's telling us that Calypso gives him the resources.
This is the tree grove of the magic tree.
Yeah.
These are the ropes of the magic rope line.
What was Odysseus doing? It's a tiny island, It's like, I never thought of that.
It might have been, Odysseus might be hearing his own story being like, they said that. I just found the tree.
There's a lot of holes in the plot, by the way, but it doesn't matter. And here's the thing about the Odysseus that is cool, and I think is goes along with our cultural programming thing, is Odysseus is on a tropical island, sleeping with a Greek goddess who is offering him immortality.
Yeah. Cultural programming of ancient man right here.
Crying. We're going to meet him in the Nolan movie. He's he's crying on the beach saying, I want to get home to my wife. I haven't seen her 20 years. I have a son.
And my child.
I have a household. I have a place in society. And here's my big take on what Nolan is going to do in the movie. What part of this book that he's going to pull from is that our identity is created kind of communally. We have places to be in society, and we have roles and we have responsibilities, and that's where our identity comes from. Where Odysseus could be immortal and just stay with this Greek goddess on this tropical island, but then he would have nothing in him that no meaning, no sense of purpose, no identity,
no connection to family or
no
land
connection to history.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I want to get back out to the struggle. I want to be in the world. I want to be of the world. And that is a man's place, is to take responsibilities and to build a household and stuff. So that was a cool bit. And in the trailer for the movie, Odysseus is on the beach and he's saying, I don't know who I am. So it's going to be, there's identity.
I love that.
Yeah. So he's going to be he's going to be
in the world, not just outside.
Later he's nobody in a very important way later in the story, and here he's literally he doesn't have an identity, and he wants to get back into the world to have an identity, to have a place, a purpose.
He takes that magic raft and sails away, but you know who hates him?
And we don't know why yet, but Poseidon hates his ass.
sea god, hates his ass. Does not like him. We're going to find out why later.
Yeah.
But Poseidon throws him a big storm. He like falls off the raft, but he can kind of see land. He swims to shore, barely makes it. Naked, salty, beat up. He lands on a shore, and we get to book 6, Nausicaa. So he gets ashore, he goes to sleep, and dude, this guy will sleep when he goes to sleep. He like sleeps for like 2 weeks. Wakes up, and who's on the beach? Princess Nausicaa having a beach day with all of her slave friends. Okay?
Actually, Athena was like, hey, why don't you need to do the laundry, right? Nausicaa goes, oh, I do need to do the laundry, which someone was saying, like, why was Athena telling her to do that? Like, she could just do the laundry.
All right, friends, we're going to the beach to do laundry. Okay. Yeah. Oh, look at this naked, hairy man stumbles out of the bushes. Who's that?
All her slaves run away, and Athena gives her strength, which is another cool, I really enjoyed this aspect. Like, the gods were almost ways of talking about psychology that maybe they didn't fully have back then. They not like, oh, I felt stronger, or like my personality is different from yours, so like I'm less likely to run away. It's no, Athena gave her courage, and then she was able to stay and talk to Odysseus, this strange, ugly, beat up guy naked on the beach.
It's very interesting that a lot of their maybe intuition or emotion they describe as God giving them the thoughts, which was probably their intuition or something like that.
Or personality or whatever.
Sure.
And here's another bit of, so Nausicaa, and Athena's like, hey, you need a husband. She was telling Nausicaa on the way to do the laundry. And now she meets this like guy, and he's a king, and so Nausicaa's like 16 years old.
Yeah.
They're kind of flirty, and he wakes up.
Oh, yeah, they're flirty.
Yeah, he puts a fig leaf on, and he's like, damn, girl, you look great. He literally, I just reread this.
That olive oil is shining on that skin.
He's like, oh, you look like a goddess. Like, look at you, And then, but he doesn't do anything, because Homer says the morals, hey, don't sleep with 16-year-old princesses when you have a wife and son that you're trying to get home to, So good Very morals. Good, Odysseus has good morals.
Dude, we got to teach all the men how to act. Odysseus can't be doing that. So we got book 7. We go to Princess Nausicaa's palace.
Yeah, Nausicaa brings him to the palace.
And the king is Alcinous. By the way, Athena cloaks Odysseus in magical mist so he can walk through the city unseen. He's naked, he's hairy, he's unclean, he's salty, which is the worst part of it, dude. Get that olive oil on. And Athena says, when you get inside the castle, make sure you go to the queen first. She's going to like you better. Right?
She has the power. She's the real power behind the throne.
She's got the power behind the throne. Nice. Yeah. Another little shout out to the lady,
Yeah, this one's much more feminist.
Yeah.
Wow. Odysseus grasps the queen's knees, a formal gesture of appeal, and in their guest friendship thing, they don't have to reveal their identity. So Odysseus doesn't tell anyone who he is or what he's trying to do. They said, come friend, feed you, clothe you, rub you down with olive oil. We've got a bunch of slaves who would love to do that for you. And then we're going to sing some songs together and blah, blah, blah. I think that brings us to book 8.
It does. The Phaeacian Games.
Which I like this scene. This was a great scene.
Dude, this scene is great. I mean, the Phaeacian Games has to be where the Olympics came from. This is the Olympics.
It's quasi-Olympics.
Quasi-Olympics.
So in Phaeacia, what this place is functioning as kind of a little utopia. It's like a fantasy world where they have perfect guest friendship. The household's perfectly in order. They play games. They're good at the games. They have a good songwriter. The function of this is it's almost like Lothlorien where he is. It's kind of like outside of time, and he's seeing like this kind of utopian world here. And so some of the younger guys challenge Odysseus to play some games. They're like running, they're wrestling, they're throwing a discus. And here's my absolute favorite line, I think maybe in the whole book. The young guys are trying to like impress Nausicaa probably.
Yeah, and who's this guest that just showed up?
He looks kind of buff. He's a little older, but
who's
this guy, so they're like, hey, come play our games. And Odysseus is like, no, I'm good, man. And one of the guys says, you know what? I bet you throw a discus like a merchant.
Oh, dude.
I bet this guy's like a purveyor of wares. And everyone's like, oh, shit. Dude. Odysseus rips into him. It's like, I've done more in my lifetime than you've ever dreamed of. You have no idea who you're dealing with, buddy. Rips that discus like way down the beach. Athena magically appears over there further than everybody else is. is, you know. Holy shit, Odysseus.
Look at this guy.
Yeah. And then he walks off, you know, doesn't do anything. Everyone's
Dude.
like, dang.
That, you know, that's going to be an incredible scene in the movie.
Yeah, that'll
you
be
know,
good.
Matt Damon's going to walk up on the beach. All right, you little pipsqueaks.
Yeah.
That night after the Phaeacian games, what do they do, Jay? They have a big feast. We got this guest. We got these games.
Still haven't asked him who he is.
Don't know who this guy is. We're going to have a big feast, get the nicest wine, get the best pigs. Let's have it. And guess what? What do they have at the feast? They have a singer,
A bard.
a blind bard. And what does he sing? He sings stories about the Trojan War.
Yeah.
And what does he sing about the Trojan War? There was this incredible guy named Odysseus who was just absolutely wrecking those Trojans.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think this is where we hear the
incredible,
story of
dude.
the
What a
Trojan,
scene.
the
Yeah.
Trojan horse. I think he sings about the Trojan horse and how Odysseus was smarter than everybody else, and he got the Trojan horse in, sacked the city, and Odysseus starts crying.
Yes.
And only Alcinous can see him crying, and he's like, "Whoa, Bard, our guest is
Crying.
crying.
This is-
Like
he's-
what?" And he says, "Like, tell me, who are you really? You know, like let's find out who you really are."
Well, I just want to point out how badass it is to show up to a random party and they're singing songs about you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Know?
Yeah.
And you turn your eye, no one can see you. Just gonna shed
Yeah.
one tear, but
Yeah.
only the
I
king
miss
can
my
see
family.
you. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Very manly, but you know.
And this is the beginning of book 9, which the title of book 9 is the Cyclops, but we're still here in this banquet hall partying after the Phaeacian games. Alcinous says, "All right, bro, I saw you crying when we were singing about Odysseus. Who are you?" And dude, this is like just the electric guitar moment, like of the whole thing. And he says, "I am Odysseus, son of Laertes." You know, like just, oh my gosh. Like if you're in that room and then, you know, he just shouts up and says that, you're like, oh my gosh.
And this is where he's like, "I'll tell you what I've gone through."
Yes.
You know, and so book 9 through 13 is what happened when he left the Trojan War, what he's been experiencing the last 10 years to wash him up on the Phaeacian island.
Oh, by the way, on the way home after the Trojan War that you guys were just singing, my ships got blown off course. All my crew kind of fell apart, and I had a lot of trouble. Right?
And a lot of trouble. And the next 4 books are the stories of all those troubles, starting with one of my favorites, the Lotus Eaters.
Yeah.
This is a famous one that's come down.
Yeah.
I've heard of the Lotus Eaters. They're basically heroin addicts.
Yeah.
I think it's probably like a poppy or something. You know, basically Homer describes it. These guys are eating the lotus. They forget who they are. They don't want to do anything. They just lay around all day. So a couple of his soldiers, you know, start hanging out with the Lotus Eaters too much. Odysseus has to wrap them up, you know, hog tie them, bring them back to the ship. They're crying. We want the lotus. We want to be dissolved. We don't want to be anybody. You know, I just want the high.
You need to
know.
become somebody. Yeah.
You need to go back to your homes and like, you know, head your households.
the men that you are. Yeah.
So there's a bit of a lesson there. Don't be like the Lotus Eaters.
Okay, we get off the Lotus Island. We get to this new island, and oh my goodness, we get trapped by the one-eyed giant Cyclops.
There's a bunch of Cyclops. This is the island of the Cyclops. And this is a bit of Odysseus. He's a moral gray character here because he could have just avoided the island. I want to know. I want to conquer cities. I want people to sing about me. I'm going to go on this island. I'm going to talk to some of these Cyclops, kind of see, you know, imagine how badass it's going to be. I come home. Oh, I visited the Cyclops, sacked a few Cyclops villages, you know, enslaved their women, you know, like, wouldn't that be amazing? I would love that. Everybody's going to love that. So he brings his crew onto the Cyclops
He's got a little bit of an
island.
ego problem.
100%.
And he's not a perfect hero. He's got these flaws.
That's why it opens. The whole book opens. Tell me of a man of twists and turns, a complicated man. In different translations, you know, all this book is like the troubles that he gets into. He kind of gets it in himself with his hubris, which is another Greek word of like, I can do this. I want to take this challenge on to be badass, and it gets you into trouble. So they go into the Cyclops cave. And he meets the Cyclops and walks up and he's like, according to guest friendship, you owe me a gift. And, you know, I'm skipping it a little.
Oh, my God.
Basically, and I'm skipping ahead just a tiny bit, but it's just too good
It's
here
great,
because the
dude.
Cyclops is like, oh, really? I owe you a gift, huh? Well, my gift to you is I'm going to eat you last. And he shuts the cave and then eats a couple of his other soldiers, you know, and then they're all like, well, fuck, we're in it now.
Yeah. Big trouble.
Big trouble. Because the Cyclops is like 30 feet tall.
Yep.
Of course, Odysseus of many wiles comes up with a plan. They sharpen a stick. They get him drunk with some wine. And the description is horrendous. Homer loves the gore. Homer's Tarantino, basically. We've got some Tarantino scenes in here.
I mean, dude, it plays. It plays in the town square.
Village,
yeah, definitely, dude.
They pop his eye with this big giant
wooden stick
log
after they got him drunk on the best wine that he had. Oh, yeah,
and the description is like, gushes and pops and jelly and singeing. And, it's like, oh, my gosh. And you can imagine all the little boys. Oh.
And then the Cyclops is now blinded, and he goes, what's your name? Who are you? Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, and he says, no man. My name is no man or nobody. Yeah.
And then so he's screaming, and the Cyclops next door is like, bro, what is going on over there? Who's attacking you? And the Cyclops says, nobody is attacking me. And the village is just dying.
Dude.
Knee slapper.
Dude.
That was a pretty good, that still lands. Nobody's attacking me,
It plays with the little kids too. The little kids love it. We got everyone's having
Disney
a good time.
Humor. That's Disney
dude,
humor.
you gotta put the Disney humor in. That's exactly what this
Nobody's
is, right?
attacking me.
Nobody's attacking me. And the other Cyclops, all right, he's fine. He's fine.
Sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. But the Cyclops is now blinded. He thinks that he's being attacked by nobody, but he's still got all of Odysseus and his men trapped in the Cyclops cave.
And he's bringing his sheep out to graze them, but he's feeling them, to make sure they're, he's not pulling the men out there. And Odysseus of many wiles, cunning Odysseus, ties all the men under the sheep, so they're all tied up under the sheep, so that the Cyclops then unwillingly,
pats the top of the sheep, doesn't feel the guy, and lets the sheep out, and all of them
get out.
And then once Odysseus and all his men, that's the good part of Odysseus, is he's cunning.
And the good part is I'm nobody. Like, he's subduing his identity to solve the goal, Like, he's like, I don't have to be the big man that everybody sings songs about. I can be the little guy behind the scenes as long as my goal is reached, So that's how he he goes in there, which gets him in the problem because he wanted to be sung about to, visit. He becomes nobody. In order to escape, he escapes, and this is what causes the whole problem for the next 10 years. He's leaving the island. The Cyclops is like, oh, shit, where'd they go? And Odysseus says, yeah, you little bitch. My name is Odysseus, son of Laertes. Tell everybody that I fucked you up.
I got you, dude.
Yeah,
this is Odysseus. Did you hear me? Yeah. This is who I am.
Little did they know.
The hubris got him there, dude.
Because Cyclops is Poseidon's son. So Cyclops says, Pops, you gotta get this guy. Don't ever let him get home. I don't ever want this guy to see his son or his wife again, And Poseidon's like, I got you.
Cultural programming, pride comes before the fall.
Yeah.
Like they were telling it back then in 800 BC.
So Poseidon, big storm, crashes the ship. They wash up on this island. That brings us to book 10. That was book 9. So the Cyclops story is the most visually represented story of the whole Odyssey. This was that was probably the one. Give us book 9. Give us book 9.
Dude, I want to hear the Cyclops. I want to hear the Cyclops. Nobody's attacking me.
Yeah, pretty good. So vases, jars, all that stuff.
It's a nice storytelling device too, because then he gets back on his boat, and then Poseidon screws around with him, and then we blow up to a new island. And then we have a new story to talk about. All right, but that's next week's story,
Exactly. Yeah.
So this week, book 10 is the Bag of Winds and Circe. They landed a new kingdom, King Aeolus.
Which is wind, where we get wind. Aeolian is wind related.
Nice.
He's the god of wind. He's nice to them. We can skip him mostly. He gives them a bag of wind. He ties up a big bag, a bag full of wind, gives it to him. Odysseus, this is where it's a little bit, he's not the best leader.
No, he's not a great leader. I agree.
He doesn't tell anyone what's in this bag. And his guys
just says, hey, here's a bag, magic
from
bag.
The king.
From the king. Do not open it. So what's going to happen? What are they going to do? Not open it?
Yeah, the guys are like, Odysseus is getting all this stuff. We deserve a piece.
Something. We've been here too.
They open the bag, blows him off course.
Yeah.
It actually blows him right back to Aeolus, who's clearly the gods hate you. I'm not helping you out anymore. You're cursed by the gods, which he is. And they sail on, and then they find Circe, who also is kind of complicated. I don't fully Circe's a weird goddess. She's kind of First of all, she's the first goddess to sleep with Odysseus. She turns all of Odysseus' men into pigs for some reason.
Which also would be hilarious in the town square for a minute.
You're right.
Good comedy.
Absolutely, it is good comedy.
They eat some magic herbs. They kind of get,
Which is also a little bit of like... So this book, The Bow and the Lyre, is this book that Chris Nolan said I read a lot about, and it was kind of it was one of the worst books I've ever read. It's
really?
It's like so hoity-toity philosophy, like reading way too deep into Homer, my opinion, my very educated opinion on Homer.
Dude.
But he says like, oh, Odysseus, like, learning about this herb is like using nature and technology to, conquer reality, sort of. I'm like, okay, it sounds like a stretch,
buddy.
but yeah, Odysseus eats a herb that cures him of being turned into a pig, and then Circe's like, well, that's pretty hot, so then they sleep together. Book 11, the Book of the Dead. This is another good part.
Circe tells him, hey man, before you go back home, you're going to need to consult a dead prophet. So I think
Tiresias.
So we need to send you to the edge of the world, and you need to basically like go to
summon the
dead in the underworld, and go talk to a bunch of dead people.
I researched this. Like, what was the edge of the world to them? In Greek Dark Age,
the North African coast or something.
No, it was Bulgaria. Like just like 100 miles north of where they are, edge of the world. Nothing else exists beyond there. And it was cool. I reread this part. The spell, or the way he conjures the underworld. You dig a 5-foot trench. You pour a bunch of blood in it. You sacrifice a black goat or black sheep. And here's a funny thing. In old times, they wanted the animal to show that it wanted to be sacrificed. So you'd get the animal to nod its head, and you could see just some dude like just pushing its head up. See, it wanted to be sacrificed. Boom, cuts its throat, drains all the blood into the ditch. They pour milk and honey, and then the shades from the underworld, because they don't have any sinew or blood or muscle, so they need to drink the blood and the milk and the honey.
Oh, interesting.
So
that's how they get.
It's very Harry Potter
re-embodied. I was thinking it was the Voldemort stew. We need Harry Potter's blood, dude. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So they come. They're like, you can imagine, and this obviously would be like, you could imagine you hearing a pin drop in the town square telling this stuff, like the shades creeping up and like drinking the blood, and then he's talking to them, and Odysseus talks to a bunch of the members of the Trojan War
that have died. The shades are these dead spirits come back to life.
Most famously, Achilles, who we're going to see in the movie. This is a very different take. Homer has a very different take versus the Iliad.
A great story about Achilles.
Because the Iliad is all about glory, and like Achilles live fast, die young. Like, I'm the best hero. I'm the best athlete. I'm the best warrior. I'm going to conquer a bunch of people.
The best thing I can do is to gain glory in battle, and I did. Yeah. You still know my name. It's 2026. You guys know me.
And Odysseus tells him, holy shit, Achilles, you're a legend, bro.
Dude, amazing.
We're singing songs about you. And here's what's really cool. Achilles says, I would rather be a slave of a slave than to be Achilles, because I'm Achilles and I'm dead. And, if I was just a slave, I would be alive. So it's like a very different, it colors it really well.
Dude,
like
cultural programming. It's not all about glory. If you die, it's worse.
Yeah.
That's what, and people would be like, whoa, that's not what Achilles, that's not the Achilles that we thought.
A different take on Achilles. So I've heard some translators say that the Iliad is Homer when he was like young and brash and up and coming, and the Odyssey is when he's an old man. I want to get home to my wife and kids and like my family,
Nice.
Yeah. So that's Achilles' storyline. He talks to his mom. I teared up reading this. He's like, Mother, I didn't know you died. He's been gone 20 years. And she's like, oh, my dear Odysseus, like, I'm so glad, to see you. What the hell are you doing here? He's like, I don't need to talk to you. I'm talking to Tiresias. So she goes,
sorry, Mom. Thank you.
Mom.
Love you, Mom.
Good to see you. So he talks to Tiresias.
Tiresias says, dude, Poseidon is still after you. You're going to get home, but there's going to be more trouble on your way home. And I have one tip for you, dude.
One tip.
Just whatever you do not eat the cattle of the sun god, okay? Do not do it. Yeah. What do you think he's going to do?
One thing don't do. Chekhov's gun is the sun god cattle.
He sees Agamemnon, who was the king of the Trojan War coalition.
Wow.
And came home victorious, but Agamemnon was murdered by his own wife with the help of his wife's lover. When he returned home after the war, Agamemnon got murdered.
Showing another example of a household in disorder.
Foreshadowing of, hey man, homecoming is dangerous. Just because you're home doesn't mean you're safe.
Yeah.
And, that's a big foreshadow for what's going to happen when Odysseus returns home.
So Odysseus says, thanks, I won't eat the cattle of the sun god, but I won't make that super clear to my... No, he does. He tries to tell his soldiers, but they're idiots.
Also, I just wanted to give a little, Agamemnon's wife killed Agamemnon as revenge because Agamemnon sacrificed their daughter for good luck in the war versus Troy.
Did he really?
That's why. So it's like...
That's screwed up.
That's screwed up.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
dude, it is wild reading a book 3,000 years old. Odysseus is like, I'm Odysseus, sacker of cities. People are like, hell yeah. Kill all those other cities. Just wild. So that brings us to book 12, the Sirens, Scylla, and the cattle of the sun. I wonder what's going to happen there. The Sirens is one of the other most famous stories.
Yeah. Yep.
And interestingly, again, Homer does not discuss them being beautiful. Actually, it's more, they sing a song. So, okay. Was it Calypso? Calypso warned him about the Sirens, I think. Said, don't, or maybe Tiresias did. The Sirens, they're going to sing a song. You're going to want to go over there. Whatever you do, don't go over there. And actually, Homer says on the island, you can see corpses, like rotting bones and of all the sailors that went on their island. They kill them and they're just rotting there on the beach. The Sirens are singing a song about knowledge. They say, come to us, we'll sing you songs of what has happened, what will happen, what is happening. Yeah. It's very Galadriel a little bit. She's like, I'll tell you what was, what will be, So it's almost like a little bit too much knowledge, a bit of Adam and Eve there too. Ooh. Don't go to, don't eat from the tree of the fruit of knowledge or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
So Odysseus, being Odysseus, he wants to know the song, but tells his men, tie me up, and if I tell you to untie me, tie me tighter.
Tie me tighter.
Rope on rope.
All the men put beeswax in their ears so that they can't hear the sounds, right?
It's cool. And so that's like what makes Odysseus such a good character is he's someone that wants to know, but he takes when he takes the precautions to like, we can go this way, but I'm going to take care of the, make sure nothing bad happens.
They get through the Sirens. They hit a 6-headed sea monster called Scylla and Charybdis. I don't know.
Scylla is the 6-headed sea monster, and Charybdis is a big whirlpool that sucks down ships. So this is that
nice.
That meme. Dude, this meme is so good. We'll pull it up where it's like, I mean, I don't think this has as much to do with the Odyssey, but the whirlpool is like, life is meaningless, and then the 6-headed monster is like, life is extremely meaningful, and you have to skate in between them. Calypso says you got to go right in between. You're going to lose a few men to the monster, but as long as you don't go in the whirlpool, you have to like, you're skating in between. And I'm probably reading too much into this too, but another big theme of the Odyssey is like, we're not beasts. We have laws, we have codes, we have customs, but we're not gods either. We have responsibilities, we have households, we die, we make loyalty oaths, So it's kind of like, you got to go right in between. You're going to lose people, but this is life's path.
That's cool. The cattle. So next, dude, we're just rapid firing these
It is
episodes.
kind of like this. Definitely, the Odyssey is not as much of an adventure as you would think going into it. It's like the adventures are flashbacks, and it's more like homecoming and how do you be a man? How should our households run? It's much more like personal and domestic than it is like a giant fantasy adventure story.
Definitely, yes. We hit the cattle of the sun. That Tiresias. The only thing I'm telling you, don't eat the cattle. What do? Odysseus falls asleep. Crew slaughters the entire herd of cattle and eats them. They look really juicy. Dude, I was joking, but it's like, you can imagine they're like, boss. Like, I know you said, but like, look at this. Look at this. Dude, this is Wagyu, dude. This is
the sun god. He's got some great cattle. Yeah. The best grass on that island.
Dude, and at that moment, after they eat all the cattle, Zeus strikes their ship with a thunderbolt and the entire crew dies.
Except Odysseus.
And that's
when he swims up to Calypso's island. She's like, hello. And that's what it's so, dude. The whole
Now
thing has been a
we're back.
flashback, and now we're in the present, and now we flash back to he's in the Phaeacians, and they're like, "Holy shit,
really, dude!
Yeah.
This guy's been talking for 8 hours,
Well,
dude.
and
Yeah,
he was on Calypso's island 7 years.
yeah.
7 years of being a sex slave, quasi demigod, wanting to get home.
Yep.
And now he's washed up in the Phaeacians, and they're like, "Bro, we got to get you home." That was a great story.
That was a great story.
We're gonna do whatever
and
it takes.
by the way, they're all drinking wine, and I'm sure they're getting some of the ladies, smoke or whatever. I mean, and he's been going on and on.
Yeah. all
Okay.
night.
So, check book 13. Odysseus lands in Ithaca. This is his island.
Dude,
Is Ithaca?
halfway through, he's home. He's home again.
We're
But
home
that's,
again. But
Well,
we're not
once again,
home.
Homer's like, you got to come back next week to find out more. Like we got to keep this thing going.
Yeah.
I got everyone,
Yeah.
going with me. So
Also, the Phaeacians, once they heard his story, they, as any good host would do to their guest, they load him up with treasure, and then they say, "We're taking you back home," and they magic boat him. He sleeps the entire 3-week trip. He's sleeping the entire time. And they get to Ithaca, they drop him off, they drop all his treasure right on the beach there.
Yeah.
He's still sleeping. They peace out, and he's sleeping on the beach with a giant pile of treasure.
Yeah.
Bang. We're opening up the, chapter 13.
And then he wakes up, and Athena clouds it all in mist.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even recognize it. He's like, "Where am I? Am I in sunny Ithaca? Am I in rocky Ithaca?" And who does he talk to first? I think he
Shepherd
wanders
boy
in.
kind of wanders in.
Eumaeus is like the low-key
I think it's
hero.
a shepherd boy. I don't think it's Eumaeus,
Maybe he
the
brings him
shepherd
to Eumaeus,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Odysseus automatically lies about who he is.
He's lying everywhere he goes.
He's a big liar. Athena disguises him as a beggar.
Yeah, that's really important. I don't know why she does that. I mean, obviously it's just to pull the tension forward, but it's also like
storytelling.
you could argue that the suitors would kill, be like, "Oh shit, he's actually back, kill him right away." He has to infiltrate his house and then defeat the suitors by wiles, very cunningly. Here's my hot take. Odysseus is like James Bond. I think I get a lot of James Bond out of him.
Like
he's
that.
sleeping with goddesses. He's like, he's disguising himself. He's a jock, but he's also he's much more intelligent than everybody else.
Yeah.
There's not very many characters. In our culture, we split that often, where in Greek, it's like you could be badass, athletic, and smart. That's when you're like a really good, specimen. So I'm getting a bit of James Bond out of Odysseus.
Yeah.
So he's disguised here, and he's got to infiltrate the house,
And this is very dangerous. We don't know who's on my side, who's not. Where am I?
Okay, so the shepherd boy approaches him on the beach, and he's lying to the shepherd boy about who he is. And then the shepherd boy turns into Athena, and she's like, "You dog, you're always lying. That's why I like you."
I forgot that shepherd boy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She's like, "You're lying all the
I love
time."
you, guy. Yeah, you're hilarious. That's why you're my guy.
100%. You're so cunning, Like, that's morally good. You should lie. You should be lying all the time to get what you want, Like, subdue your identity for your goals. Maybe that's I don't know.
And I think we're building up to the climax, Jay, which this is a story about man taking his place at the head of his family, kind of.
Yeah.
And so we have book 14, 15, like he's back home, but he's still got to take the ownership, rightful place. And so we go to the book 14, 15, Eumaeus' hut. Eumaeus' hut. Telemachus returns.
So I like he starts from the bottom. Eumaeus is his swineherd was one translation. He's also their slave. He's their slave boy who takes care of all the pigs.
The farm.
He's the farm slave boy.
Yeah, sure.
And
Farm slave
he's a hero.
man. He's a man now.
Yeah, he's a bit of he's a
Eumaeus.
young guy. So Eumaeus is a hero in this story because he's like, "Come, stranger, I'm gonna give you food. I'm gonna give you drink. Once we've had that, then we can swap stories. But first, come into my house. I'll take care of you. And he's like, "I'm gonna tell you my story." Eumaeus tells him his story. "Oh man, I miss Odysseus so much. He was such a great guy. These suitors are eating him out of house and home. It's terrible things."
Yeah, by the way, who are you? Oh, I'm not going to tell you yet.
I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
But this was hilarious. And rereading this, my jaw dropped. Like, so Odysseus is like, "Tell me about yourself. Like, how did you come to be under Odysseus?" And he's like, "Well, I was like a semi-noble before, and then the Ithacans killed my family and enslaved me and took me back here. But it's been rough, but Odysseus is a great master. And Odysseus is like, sounds tough, but not nearly as tough as what I've been through, boy. Like Odysseus, absolutely zero sympathy, and
Empathy,
literally
no
says, like, that's rough, but I've been through
it's
way
worse.
worse.
Been for me, man. Hey,
I'm a king.
He's a one-upper. So Odysseus is a bit of a one-upper. Oh no, dude, that's annoying.
It was so crazy to hear, like, Eumaeus,
whatever, dude.
Stop yapping. Let me tell you what I've been through.
We will a little bit of by the way, Eumaeus, according to the research we did, was one of Homer's favorite characters.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in Western literature that a regular guy, it's a slave guy.
Yeah, we're talking to a slave.
A non-king, a non-prince, king type noble person has lines.
Yeah.
Has a personality and displays the good character of noble manliness as a regular man,
and
right?
once again showing like he knows his place he's a great slave. This is how you want to run a household. You want slaves like him, and if you're a slave, you should look up to be like Eumaeus. He's a great guy.
Yeah, exactly. And also the slaves are in the town square too, listening to this, and so they're learning. Here's how you be a good,
Yeah. Oh, Odysseus, I'm crying every night for my slave master gone 20 years.
Yeah, true.
All right, Eumaeus. You sound like a suck up. But.
And so Eumaeus kills his best pigs for this beggar. We know the beggar's Odysseus. He doesn't know it's Odysseus.
Yeah. I think that brings us to book 15 when Telemachus comes back from his little adventure.
One more detail is just so good. When he's walking to Eumaeus' hut, Odysseus, this is just such a nice detail. The Eumaeus' dogs run up and they're like going to kill him, And at the last minute, Eumaeus is like, dogs, go away. This is a guest, And just the quote he gives is, dude, the dogs would have given me the rough side of your tongue. And I'm like, what? And I looked it up. And that was like a saying for basically you would have died and your tongue would have been hanging out upside down. And then you would have given me the rough side of your tongue. I just thought that was such a cool, wow,
that's a
nice
good visual.
Yeah. So we are now, Jay.
Book 15.
Book 15. Telemachus comes home
from his little adventure, learning how to be a man under Nestor and Menelaus. And he comes back and he's like, Eumaeus, you've always been my boy. You've loved my dad. I miss my dad. I hear he's still alive. I can't wait to see him. Eumaeus walks away. Eumaeus leaves the hut. Athena changes Odysseus back into his normal form.
Not his beggar form, yep.
Telemachus is like, Dad! Great bit of homecoming, runs up, hugs him, crying tears. Odysseus is like, yeah, back off,
Dude, we talked about Harry Potter a second ago. Let's go, hey, Telemachus, I am your father.
Yeah,
does father, it get more, wow.
That is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, we got to hatch a plot to defeat the suitors, So that's what the next few books are going to be.
It's a great scene, by the way. I'm sure in the movie it's going to be super emotional when, Telemachus, I am your father.
Here's everyone has problems with the casting, which I don't really care about. My one problem with the Nolan casting isn't Tom Holland like almost 30? He's got to be like an old guy.
He looks like a young guy, though.
He looks like a young guy, but Telemachus is kind of a pansy 20-year-old. I want to see like a scrawny 18-year-old kid. Tom Holland is like a mega star. Seems weird. He looks young. I'm sure he'll be good, but I'm like, Telemachus should have been a little bit younger and scrawnier, but oh well.
He's pretty scrawny.
Maybe.
I don't know. Wait, quote, a passionate longing for tears arose in them both, and they cried more piercingly than crooked-clawed eagles whose young were stolen. I love this ancient, and they talk about the tears dripping into the dirt, crooked-clawed eagles crying. Book 17, we got 2 people on the team. We got 3 people on the team. We got Eumaeus. We got Odyssey. We got Telemachus. Book 17, Odysseus goes to town. Beggar Odysseus walks into the town with Eumaeus.
And here's one of the most popular scenes of the whole book, or the whole story, is Odysseus is walking into town as a beggar. Argus, his old faithful hunting dog, 20 years old, laying in a dung heap. Nobody takes care of him anymore because the household's in disarray. Argus recognizes him. Nobody's been able to recognize him under the,
I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Argus starts wagging its tail, sniffing. Odysseus can't go over and pat him because then people would know he's Odysseus. So he sheds a tear. Homer says a tiny little tear went, oh, yeah, that's a good one. And then Argus dies right after. Oh, I can die happy now. The king is home,
What a nice little
Yeah, a little
vignette
touch,
of
yeah.
a story of just like my hunting dog recognized me. He's the only one that knew me, that
Yeah.
could see me for who I really
Yeah.
am. Dude, that's amazing.
When that's a powerful bit of storytelling to like still be emotional, 3,000 years later.
and I'm
Pretty
sure
cool.
back then everyone loves their dogs too.
yeah.
Oh, my dog too. Yeah, but yeah. Oh.
That was a very, very touching scene there.
So we get back to the palace. And this is Odysseus's palace, but obviously it's not his right now. All
There's
the suitors are
100
there.
suitors, and we got one. We're only giving you one character.
Yeah,
of
there's
the
a lot of
suitors.
suitors, but there's a couple big
Robert
suitors.
Pattinson is.
Oh, is that Robert Pattinson?
100%.
Dude, he's going to be great for this.
Antinous. Antinous is like the lead bad guy here. He's the one kind of riling everybody up. He's like, who's this piece of shit who just washed up?
This beggar.
You look like ass, to the beggar. There's another beggar who's just hanging around, who's a total dickwad. And he's like, hey, buddy, I'm begging here.
I'm begging here. You go beg somewhere else.
Yeah. And then basically Antinous is like, hey, I have a great idea. Let's have a beggar fight. Ha ha. And all the suitors come over. And Odysseus is like, don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. And the beggar's like pushing him. And Odysseus kicks his ass. Everyone's laughing. Look at the beggars fighting. This is the best. Bring some more wine. This is hilarious. And so it's like such a funny,
Scene.
imagine back then they're like the king is a beggar
Fighting with a beggar.
and fighting another beggar like in the dirt, wrestling, probably biting each other, and so funny.
I could see that, just the absurdity of that in the mind of the
Yeah.
townspeople would be like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this is fantastic, right? Yeah.
Good storytelling here. Yeah.
And by the way, dude, great storytelling continues because beggar fight is done. And what happens? Penelope descends from the balcony upstairs, and she like comes out into the balcony way above the fray, and she says, I'm ready to get married. It's been long enough,
Well, the guy,
she calls out, hey, suitors, bring your best wedding gifts. Whoever brings me the best gift, I will take their hand in marriage. Dude, she comes down, quote, with a groan like the roar of a bull at a grass in a meadow.
Wow.
That's quote from the book, dude.
She's in heat.
Yeah.
She's been putting off marrying, obviously, for 10 years. And she's like, okay, I can't wait any longer.
This is the first time this is like a big moment when because the suitors are basically hanging around waiting for her to.
We don't need to discuss what she's been weaving for her dad. She's been putting him off for a while. And
I think she weaves a basket during the day, then she unweaves it at night.
Yeah.
She says, when I'm done weaving the basket or whatever, a scarf or something.
She weaves a funeral shroud for one of Odysseus's father, and then once this is done, I'll marry you. She unweaves it at night. They just figure it out. I think that's what they had just figured out, that she was unweaving it at night. So their Antinous is probably going to be like, okay, now you got to marry one of us.
Antinous, by the way, is like Biff from Back to the Future, just the annoying guy. We got book 19, Penelope and the Scar. So Odysseus is still disguised as the beggar, but Penelope kind of later at night, she's like, wait, who is this beggar guy?
No, and he claims to have information on Odysseus.
Oh,
so he tells Penelope, Odysseus is, he's traveling, he's trying to get back to you. She's like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Crete. I've been doing this and that, and just lying, through his teeth to her, which is just like, once again, come back next week and and find out more. Homer's just stretching out the story.
And then Penelope's like, all right, thanks. Nice to meet you, beggar. I'm going to send my nurse, Euclitia, and she's going to wash you up. And then while she's washing him up...
This is Odysseus' old nurse who
happens to be Odysseus.
Suckled him as a babe.
Wow. And she sees a scar on his leg that only Odysseus would have. This nurse sees it. And she's like, wait. And he says, shh.
Yeah, he fucking chokes her out and says, don't tell. Like, if you tell, I'm going to kill you.
It wasn't just a shh. Okay,
no. Yeah.
Okay.
I just reread it. Once again, she's his slave. So he grabs her by the throat, holds like a knife up and says, if you tell, I'm going to cut your throat. And she's like, my king, I would never do such a thing. I'm loyal. And he's like, all right, I'm setting up a plan. We're going to get the suitors out of here.
And here's the plan. Hey, Telemachus, he comes in. We're going to get all the weapons that are in the Great Hall.
Yeah.
And we're going to put them in the storeroom in the back.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So tactical setup for what's coming. Boom, we're at the next day. Penelope announces the contest. She says, all right, I figured it out. It's
How
not
I'm
just
gonna
going to be a
decide,
gift.
yeah.
How am I going to decide the suitor that I choose? Whoever can string Odysseus's great bow and shoot one arrow through. So, by the way, they have these 12 axes, and these axes have a little ring on the top of the axe.
Like a little circle where
Like
the
where
thing
they
would
you can hang
tie
it on the
right
wall.
through.
Exactly. You hang the axes on the wall with a little circle like ring on the top, and they stick 12 of them in the ground in a straight line. And she says, whoever can take Odysseus's bow and shoot the arrow through all 12 rings. I love it, dude. What a great scene.
A good contest.
Good contest.
And I mean, it's like a thick bow. Like this is like a
big bow.
Super heavy bow. So the guys start going up there. They can't get the string, they can't bend it enough. None of them are strong enough.
They get the grease. They try and grease up the bow. They still can't bend it. So they're milking this scene, I'm sure, when they're telling
here's one of my favorite lines. Antinous is like, I know why we can't string the bow. It's Apollo's day, the god of archery. He's not letting us string the bow. Let's get more wine, hang out tonight, come back tomorrow when it's not Apollo's day.
Antinous,
everyone's like, hell yeah, bring more wine, bring more wine.
Yeah.
And then here's the moment.
The beggar comes up.
Why don't you guys give me a shot? And everyone's like, what the hell is this guy doing? He shouldn't even be here, And then
you can see the scene coming up. They put a spotlight on him in the 100%. Scene. He grabs an arrow, slow motion.
And here's another bit of like ancient man programming. Penelope's is like, let him do it. Of course, I would never marry the beggar, which is also ironic, And then Telemachus goes, shut up, mom. Go upstairs. Go to bed. I'm in charge here. I'm letting the beggar string the bow. And Penelope says, oh, wow, my son's so right. And the Homer says, she went upstairs, she cried about Odysseus, and she fell asleep and didn't hear anything. Isn't that crazy? It's just like, it's just different, It's just, it's 3,000 years old,
3,000
But it's
years
also
old.
Telemachus standing up for himself a little bit. Didn't need to put your mom down that much, but that's our culture.
Yeah, dude. I can just imagine the suitor. So he's like walking over and like, get a load of this guy. Like, what does this guy think? He's a bow connoisseur?
No, you got to set it up like, so Telemachus says, I'm going to allow the beggar to do it. And of course, he's never going to marry my mom, blah, blah, blah. Odysseus walks up to the bow, his big bow, haven't seen it in 20 years. He fingers it. He's looking at it. And the guy, guy's like, what do we got, a bow connoisseur over here? They're like, look at this guy. Wow, look at the beggar. He's like,
he loves the strings on this bow.
Yeah. Everyone's laughing. And then, boom, strings the bow, like it plucks the string. It sounds like a lyre, which is where the title of that poem, which I love that little phrase, ding.
Yeah. Dude, you can see like the camera shot's gonna be like him, like just like lovingly looking at his old bow, strings it,
boom,
boom, and there's a thunderclap from Zeus when he's holding the bow. Really? By the way, thunderclap right through all 12 strings, and probably like pinches the door right in a little target on the door behind all 12 or something. You know what I mean?
And I think Antinous is like, holy shit, who's this guy? And then Odysseus, he says some lines. I forget what he says.
No, I got it right here. He goes, so Jay, Odysseus strings the bow, shoots it right through. Then he turns around, he stands up, quote, you dogs, you never thought to see me back from Troy. You fleeced my household. You raped my maids. You courted my wife with no more fear of the gods than of any of human vengeance. One and all, your fate is sealed. Boom! Arrows flying. Antinous' first move just is electric, dude.
He shoots it right through. Antinous is taking a sip.
Yeah.
Goes right through his throat. Homer says the red jets flame out from his neck. This is the Tarantino scene. This turns into Django Unchained. Absolute
Kill Bill, everything.
Yeah, Kill Bill. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like this. I got a little bit
doors.
I have a very specific set of skills.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. They lock the doors. They murder everybody.
Dude, this is gonna be so good.
100 dead bodies in in their little great hall.
Mm-hmm.
And this is funny. At one point, some arrows are flying right towards Odysseus and Telemachus, and then Athena decides, for once, to pop in, whoop, make the arrows go away. They miss their mark. It's like Athena could have done a lot more than just right at the end make the arrows fly away. But
Dude, more dramatic.
But I do love that he says, "You dogs."
You dogs.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Good. And so because he calls them non-God fearing, like God fearing means you give gifts to
God
guests.
worshiping.
You're good. Like the gods want us to be good guests and good hosts. You know, you've been betraying the gods by living here. You all deserve to die. So,
and there's a little bit. We're going to go to a little bit of ancient cultural philosophy programming here again, Jay. During this whole chapter, he's determining who's loyal, who's disloyal. There's lots of little tests for like all the different servants and slaves, and the disloyal goat herd is mutilated.
Dude,
fed to the dogs.
They torture him. They string him up. They rack him. Probably dislocate his shoulders, string him up. Mm-hmm. Here's the crazy, and this is probably the darkest part of this whole book. So there were, he has lots of female slaves in the household. Well, a lot of them have been prostituting themselves to the what are they gonna do? They're a female slave. Sex work is real work. In our culture. Mm-hmm. They make the female slaves clean up all the bodies, soak up all the blood, shovel them, dig a big pit, put them in the hole, and then what do? They corner them and hang all of the female slaves. I don't think we're going to see that in Nolan's interpretation.
I don't think so.
Hanging all the prostitutes who are just hanging around the house, But once again, the slaves, it's almost like the crucifix thing. Like you give the slaves the worst torture, the worst death.
Yeah.
Because you have to show this is the totem pole, you're low, I'm high. A disloyal slave is treated much worse than the suitors who are just killed, by sword or whatever. But if you were a disloyal slave, you get hung.
And
so
disloyalty is a worse crime than lying.
Yeah.
Odysseus is lying the whole time.
Yeah.
But disloyalty is what gets punished.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of anti-Christian moral. That's the difference between
book is
Christianity.
Very non-Christian.
That's very. I mean, there was no Christianity back then.
Yeah.
And the moral structure. This is a power politics moral structure.
Yeah.
Power is morally good.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jesus flips that around completely, and that's what Christianity is about. But Jesus wasn't here yet.
No. So that brings us to book 23. Which is Odysseus and Penelope. And here's a really good scene. And Penelope matches him for wisdom and cunning, and she's very smart. She's been, she's a hero of the story in the sense, too, that she was unweaving the shroud every night to, delay the marriage. So she meets Telemachus says, "Mom, this beggar is actually Odysseus." I think Athena might actually change him back into his form at this point. So he turns into, it's like Beauty and the Beast. He turns into the handsome, strapping, tall, thick jaw, but
olive oil skin.
But Penelope is too smart and cunning, and so she doesn't entirely trust that this really is the real Odysseus.
Good job, Penelope.
So she says, "I'm not going to trust you tonight, but why don't we bring, you can have my bed.
Chase.
We're gonna put my bed out in the hallway for you. You can sleep in it, and then we'll talk about this tomorrow." And Odysseus blows up at her, says, "You bitch, you can't even move that bed because I built that bed onto an olive tree.
The stump of an olive tree.
So you would have to cut this thing, and this is such an important memory for us or whatever." And then she says, "My husband is home." She bursts into tears. It was a test because only Odysseus knows that her bed is built on the stump of an olive tree, So that was a cool bit of storytelling because you're reading this and you're like, Odysseus is yelling at her and she doesn't trust him, and then
she did her own version of make sure home is safe.
lie and make sure, and then you can cry.
Also super badass furniture, out of the stump of an olive tree. We built our bed.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
amazing. And now husband and wife are reunited. Father and son are reunited. Book 24, the feud has ended. Odysseus goes and visits his father, Laertes.
Lies to him too.
Lies to him to test him.
Yeah.
Jeez, man, this is stressful, dude.
Yeah.
But obviously, all these suitors, the family of Antinous and all the rest of the buddies that got killed, they come for revenge. blood feud is brewing again.
And so this turns into like an Avengers bit. It's like Telemachus, Laertes, Odysseus, they all suit up. Laertes actually kills someone.
Wow.
And then Athena floats down and says, let there be peace. I'm done with this, you know. And then the end. That was like, that's the end, is basically
Let
Athena.
there be peace. Odysseus can be king again.
Yeah.
No more. Everything is done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Recognition is such an important element in the story. Like Eumaeus finally recognizing Odysseus, Telemachus recognizing him, like Odysseus recognizing himself on Calypso's island, like I want to get home. Penelope recognizing him, the dog recognizing him. You know, it's all like, I think that's where Nolan is going to take this. I mean, Memento, Inception, like these are all bits of like where the characters are trying to put themselves together again based on like memory or like, you know, relationships or whatever. And so I think that that's Nolan's take, is going to be like Odysseus goes home to like re-enter his identity
place as part of the story of the world. Another big theme is rank versus virtue. We have these noblemen suitors with very low they're not virtuous.
Yeah.
And we have these slaves with high virtue. So it's like, you know, different people. It's about the virtue that you have, not the rank that you have, which I think is very
sort
nice.
of. Yeah, because they do make Eumaeus a hero. They give him a wife and property. You know, so they raise him up based on his you know, his role in the revolution, sort of. Yeah. So I mean, that is kind of nice. I mean, obviously it's still very like, Eumaeus, you're here, I'm here. Obviously the slaves get hung and stuff, but I mean, it is 3,000 years old. This is like, this story is Dark Age Greece. Here's what's interesting, dude. I did a little bit of research. So you know how, have you heard of Linear B? The Minoan civilization was pre-Greek. This is 3,000 years ago, more than 3,000 years ago, pre-Bronze Age collapse. They have writing with, and they describe on these tablets, they describe 100 jobs for people. Like just talking about, you know, their receipts, their this and that. And, you know, there's a potion maker and there's like a weaver and a leatherman and blah, blah, blah. And there's like, you know, this really fleshed out culture. Then the Bronze Age collapse happens. 1117, great book. Actually, there's a famous book written on that.
Love it.
All these societies collapse. Dark Age happens. In Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, there is not one scrap of writing. Nobody writes anything down. Writing doesn't exist yet. It's coming from Phoenicians. Egyptians have it. The Greeks don't have it. There's like 10 jobs for people. There's all, you know, the kingdoms are extremely small. Yeah. Odysseus is king of like a tiny village. Wow. You know, like basically everything shrunk. This is like the Dark Ages of Greece. This is pre-Athens, Sparta, what we think of as, you know, being like big city states or whatever. This is the cultural milieu out of which those things come, you know. But it's just an interesting example of like, there's no iron. There is a little bit of iron, but it's not a weapon. They don't even know how to make it into a weapon in these stories yet. Wow. They give iron. They're like, oh, this strange metal. I don't. It's like they make like a necklace out of it or something.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah, this is the Bronze Age. They're
so
swords,
far backwards.
Their swords are bronze, copper, you know, which are apparently worse metals to make armor and swords out of. Sure. So this is like Dark Age shit. So it was very interesting to like kind of like enter that mindset. And, you know, you can compare and contrast. Obviously, we've updated our morals quite a bit. Lying isn't quite as good as it used to be. Hanging your slaves is frowned upon. Yep. But there's also so many things that are like fun and, you know, like taking responsibility for your family, standing up, being a man. You know, the feminist speeches are cool. You know, it's like you just see all these like bits of our culture that are like bubbling up just barely in this story, you know.
I mean, the echoes of this story, I mean, you got...
Yeah, this is the story.
Lord of the Rings. You got Star Wars. You got Dante's Inferno.
Harry Potter, Dante for sure, Virgil.
Like, where did Dante go down to hell? I mean, that's like that whole chapter about going to hell and talking to Achilles. That's where that came, you know.
Nolan, I just read an interview. Yeah. He calls this... he calls it the text. I think that's... cool. Is like... Yeah. This is like the foundation. Even more than the Bible, in a way. And he's like, almost every movie I've ever done is like contained in the Odyssey, you know?
That's cool.
A lot of identity, a lot of, you know, constructing yourself, a lot of adventure, a lot of internal adventure, you know, recognition of who I am, stuff like that. So he's a good person to do it. Even one of the translators, like this stodgy Greek translator, is like, Nolan's going to do a good job. Nolan's the guy for the job, you know, to do it. So that'll be coming out soon. I'm excited. I really enjoyed it. I reread it just recently. I enjoyed it more on my reread than I did the first time. It is a bit weird. You're like, all these random stories. Who are these guys? And then you put it together under like, this is how their villages functioned. This is how they thought about being a man. And this is their place in society or whatever, you know, kind of fills it out more.
I do think, yeah, it is a page turner. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And also, if you're interested in the evolution of society and man, it's like, this is an amazing source of material. Like, what was it like
a good
back
source.
then?
Yeah, it was a good source. So
thank you, Homer.
Thank you, Homer. How about that?
Dude.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, dude. Great job, buddy. Yeah. Books Brothers.
Yeah.